Hello. What's more important to you? The person who does something or the process itself? Depending on the situation, your answer might be different. Sometimes we want to know who did the thing. Other times, it's the activity itself that needs to be the focus of the sentence. In English, when we're focusing on the process and the person or things that did the process are less important, we use what's called the passive voice. Now, the passive voice exists in English in the past, present and future. And we're going to be looking at lots of different forms of the passive voice in this lesson. So let's start with the present simple passive. In terms of form, the present simple passive looks like subject with a form of the verb to be, with the past participle, which is the third verb form. In the passive voice, it doesn't matter what time you're using, you always use the past participle in the passive voice. And sometimes, when we want to focus a little bit on who did it, we would use by plus the object, as in the agent. Who did this sentence? Now, to show you how the passive voice really works, we're going to compare sentences. So, for example, with the present simple passive, first we've got what's called an active sentence. A Chinese company makes these clothes. So nice present simple, very clear. The focus of this sentence is being a Chinese company. And what we've done with the passive is we've moved things around to focus this time on the activity. For example, these clothes are made by a Chinese company. So as you can see here, we've got the form of to be, are, after a plural, third form of the verb, and this time we have included who did the thing. Because I think in this sentence it's quite useful to know the Chinese company. So we can also use the passive voice with the present continuous. For example, active sentence, they are cooking the food right now. Then again, we change things around. We move the object to the subject. And the passive voice sentence becomes, the food is being cooked right now. So in the present continuous passive, the form of to be is plus being, followed by the third form of the verb, right now. Now this time we haven't included who's doing it, because in this sentence, it's not important or not particularly useful information to include. So now let's take a look at the past forms of the passive voice. For example, the past simple. And again, the form is exactly the same. We've still got the subject, which was the object, so they've swapped around, followed by a form of the verb to be, which can change depending on the tense that you're using. And of course, always the past participle, the third form of the verb, and the preposition by with the object, depending on if you think this information is necessary or actually sort of important in a way. For example, here we've got an active sentence. The boss told us to be here at 7:30 p.m. We were told to be here at 7:30 p.m. So this time, in the past passive, we've got was or were, plus the third form of the verb. Now again, in this sentence, we've not included who told us, because either it's known or not important. The present perfect passive is a little bit more complicated, and so if we have a look at the active sentence, no one has asked me about my birthday. I have not been asked about my birthday party. So in the present perfect passive, we've got the form of to be, this time in the negative, followed by the past participle. And again, this time we haven't included the information because it's not needed. No one has asked anybody. So we've looked at the present and past forms of the passive voice. Now we're going to have a look at how we can use the passive voice in the future, specifically with will and going to. And again, the structure is exactly the same as previous examples of the passive voice, but the details, for example, with the verb to be, change. For example, when we go look at this active sentence, someone will give me a present at Christmas. Here the focus being on the agent, the person. And we change it over, turn it into the passive voice to focus on the process, like this. A gift will be given to me at Christmas. This time again, the person giving the gift is not the focus of the sentence, it's not important, so we've used the passive voice. With going to, again, we've got an active sentence here. He is going to build a spaceship. So again, we take the word spaceship, focus on the process this time. A spaceship is going to be built by him. So is going, verb to be, third form of the verb, built, this time by him, because I think it is important this time to focus a little bit on who's going to build the spaceship. So, in this lesson, we've looked at the passive voice. We've looked at the passive voice in the present, past, and future forms. And we've looked at how we can change an active sentence into a passive sentence and the role the passive voice plays in focusing on processes as opposed to people. So now you can take the exercises which follow this lesson. Good luck.